Hey there, Dr. Claw here to explain a couple of your extra credit options for business writing this term. So in your Canvas screen, this will be on the upcoming assignments section. On mine it looks a little different, but basically there are two options. There's one which is you'll write a new item, and then there's one where you will revise an old item and resubmit it. We'll start with the new item first. So this is a press conference, and this comes from a section of our text that we read. So this was chapter 17, and it's an exercise where as part of sharing negative news, you are writing a press conference, and you will actually pick a scenario based on your birthday month. So it's kind of interesting. You'll get to try out different scenarios based on whatever month you're in. So I've given you a couple of guidelines here. You'll want to check your textbook for the components on 568. So they mention that in a press conference you need to cover these essential questions: who, what, where, when, how, and why. And each of these scenarios is different, but in all of them you are representing somebody or something, an entity who is dealing with something negative in the public. And so you're trying to use those principles of sharing negative messages that we read about in order to kind of mitigate the ramifications of whatever bad thing has happened. Then I want you to write a reflection in which you explain what parts of chapter 17 you used to write your press conference. And basically, there's no set length on this. I just want you to cover these questions. And as you know, with business writing, we are aiming for conciseness. However, you also want to keep in mind what we talked about with the group projects, where you did the getting sued assignment. You don't want to prematurely accept blame either. So it's a delicate balance there. So keep those in mind, and then if you get full credit on this assignment, you'll get 1 point towards your final grade in the class. There's also a rubric available, and so if you scroll down in your assignment, you'll be able to see exactly what I'm grading on. So I'm looking at your completion if you answered all 6 of the basic questions, and if you fully addressed the situation in the prompt. I'm also going to be looking at if you're actually focusing on the situation in the prompt and the parties that were affected, and if you're addressing your audience effectively. As you know, audience is so important in all writing, but in particular, business writing, and even more in particular with negative news messages. So that focus aspect is really important. As I mentioned, conciseness is a key part of business writing, and I'm going to be grading you on that in the press conference. So you need to avoid jargon, you need to avoid slang, and you need to avoid passive voice. So this will actually be excellent practice for those principles that you've been going for all term. And then finally, I will be looking at your proofreading. So that is the press conference extra credit assignment, and let's pop over to the resubmission extra credit assignment. So this one, Reflect and Resubmit, invites you to take an assignment that you have already completed for this class and you're unhappy with your grade on it for some reason. So what I'll ask you to do is gather the feedback that I gave you on the original assignment. You will copy that into a Word document, and then you'll write a reflection. And I recommend you actually do the reflection before you revise the assignment, because doing the reflection is going to help you think through where you went off course and what you can do to get back on course. So it'll actually help you with the revision process. So the reflection will need to address these 7 questions that ask you to think critically about whatever went wrong with that first assignment. So based on the feedback that I've given you, what part of your submission needs the most work, and what steps can I take to improve that part? So think about what my feedback says, what is the main thing I ask you to focus on, and how can you, what concrete steps can you take to focus on that thing? And then I'll ask you if there is a secondary part of the submission that needs work. And of course, if there's a third part and so on, it's worth addressing those in the reflection as well. Next comes the kind of like metacognition aspect of the reflection, where you think about not just this assignment, but maybe what action or behavior led to the unfavorable grade that you got. So I'm asking you to think about what led to the assignment not reaching the level you want. Was it something like overlooking instructions? So maybe you only read the first part of the instructions and you missed something in the second part. Did you maybe not leave yourself enough time to complete the assignment and so you had to rush through it? Or was there something else that you can pinpoint that led to you not kind of attaining that level of grade that you wanted? And the reason I want you to think through this is because a lot of times there's some kind of root cause that might impact you in other situations, including in a professional situation. And so I want you to think about, what are the kind of long-term ramifications of whatever happened that led to this assignment not being what I wanted it to be? How might this play out beyond this business writing classroom? And how can I avoid doing that thing in the future? So, and then, of course, you'll revise your actual assignment to meet the expectations I stated in the instruction. You'll make sure you have the title of the assignment so that I know what I'm grading, and I will grade it according to the original instructions and the original rubric. But the reason that I ask you to think about the why is because it really can make a difference in your understanding of what you're doing and why you're doing it. And I give an example down here. So I used to be late everywhere, and I never wanted to be late. And I didn't want to be the type of person that was always late. And I couldn't figure out why I was constantly late until finally I started paying really close attention to what was happening. And basically what I would do is I would allow myself enough time to drive from point A to point B, but I wouldn't allow myself enough time to do things like get my keys, get my coat, walk to my car, get in my car, turn on my car, and then once I get there to try to find parking, to park, and then to walk to my actual destination. And all of those things, even though they don't individually take a lot of time, they all add up to a few minutes here and there, maybe an extra 10 minutes. And once I started taking that into account and thinking about all the extra time that I would need to do little stuff, it was just like a light bulb went off in my head. I was like, oh, and so I allowed myself more time to get from point A to point B, and I stopped being late all the time. So now is rarely something I have to deal with. And it was because I really thought critically about what I was doing rather than sort of blaming the momentary things that were happening, like, oh, well, I ran into extra traffic, or oh, well, I couldn't find a parking spot. Yes, those things impacted the time it would take me to get from point A to point B, but that was something that I could actually account for if I gave myself extra time and assumed that maybe I would run into some setbacks like that. And if I build them into my schedule, then they don't actually become a problem. So that's what I'm asking you to think through, is what was it that led to you not reaching the level in that assignment that you wanted, and kind of thinking through how that might play out in other parts of your life. So for your writing, the style, you can be personal here because this is a reflection. You don't have to use objective language here. So it's a little bit different than your normal business writing, though you can certainly use business writing style if you want. In terms of design, I mentioned this already, but basically put the well, here I said the reflection at the top and then your feedback. So as long as the reflection and the feedback show up before the assignment revision, that's fine. Your assignment revision should be on a new page. This is so that I can sort of see the assignment itself more clearly. As I mentioned, you need a title for the assignment that you're completing. That's so that I know what it is that you're resubmitting. And this should all be a single document that you upload to Canvas. So your single document needs the reflection, my feedback on the original assignment, and the revised assignment. If you complete this, I will replace your previous grade on the assignment with this new grade as long as it's higher. So this assignment can't penalize you. It is extra credit. And also I should reiterate, this is not a required assignment. It is extra credit. So if you don't complete this assignment, that's not a problem. It will not impact your grade. So those are a couple of extra credit options that you have for business writing this term.